My name is Victoria. I am 34 years old. I live in a cozy little house on a street lined with big oak trees. I love my house. I love my job as a librarian. And I love my husband, David. My life, for the past 2 years, has been perfect. A quiet, happy dream. I thought I had finally found my forever. But that was before the phone rang yesterday. Before a woman's voice on the other end of the line broke my perfect world into a million tiny pieces. The woman said, "I am his first wife. You need to know the truth. David is a wonderful man. He is kind and charming. He has a warm smile and eyes that make you feel like you are the only person in the room." When I met him, I was 32. I had been in a few bad relationships. I was starting to think that real, true love was not for me. Maybe it was only for people in movies. Then I met David. He was a consultant for a company that worked with my library. He came in for a meeting. He stayed to talk to me. He asked me about my favorite books. He listened. He really listened. He made me feel interesting. He made me feel beautiful. Our love story was a whirlwind. He was romantic. He brought me flowers. He wrote me little notes and left them on my car. He told me I was the best thing that had ever happened to him. I fell in love so fast, so deeply. It felt like my life had finally started. He told me about his past. He told me he had been married before. His story was so sad. He said his first wife, Anna, had left him. He said she was unstable, that she had problems with money. He said she broke his heart and his trust. He looked so wounded when he talked about it, so hurt. My heart ached for him. I wanted to be the one to heal him, to show him what real love was, to make him happy again. "I never thought I could trust anyone again, Victoria," he told me once, holding my hands. "But you are different. You are so good, so pure." We got married a year after we met. It was a small, beautiful wedding in a garden. David cried when he saw me in my dress. He told me he was the luckiest man alive, and I believed him. I was so happy. I was Mrs. Victoria Sterling. I was David's wife. My dream had come true. Married life was everything I had hoped for. David took care of me. He was so thoughtful. He would make me coffee every morning. He would rub my feet after a long day at work. He talked about our future, a bigger house, children, growing old together. It was a beautiful picture, our beautiful picture. There were small things, things I see clearly now, but that were blurry then. He handled all our money. "I'm good with numbers, my love," he said. "Let me take care of it. You just relax." It seemed romantic. It seemed like he was taking care of me. So I let him. I trusted him. He didn't like my best friend, Sarah, very much. He said she was too loud, too negative. "She's not good for you, Victoria," he would say gently. "She doesn't see how special you are." I started seeing Sarah less. I didn't want to upset David. I wanted our home to be peaceful. I trusted his judgment. He was my world, my sun, my moon. Everything revolved around him. His happiness was my happiness. I thought this was what love was. And then, yesterday, the phone rang. It was an unknown number. I almost didn't answer. "Hello," I said. There was a pause. Then a woman's voice. A voice that sounded tired, but strong. "Is this Victoria Sterling?" she asked. "Yes, who is this?" I said. "My name is Anna," she said. "I am David's first wife." My whole body went cold. Anna, the unstable woman who broke his heart. What did she want? Why was she calling me? I don't think my husband would want you calling me," I said. My voice was shaking. "I'm sure he wouldn't," she said. Her voice was calm. It was not the voice of a crazy person. "That's why I'm calling. I saw your wedding announcement online. You look very happy. And you look like a very kind person. That's why I have to do this. You need to know the truth, Victoria." "I know the truth," I said, a little too loudly. "I know you left him. I know you hurt him very badly." There was a long silence on the other end of the line. Then Anna let out a sad, soft laugh. "Is that what he told you?" she said. "Of course it is. That's his story. He is very good at telling it." "It's not a story," I said, defending him. "It's what happened." "Victoria," she said. Her voice was so serious. It cut through my anger. "Let me ask you some questions. Does he control all the money?" My breath caught in my throat. He's good with numbers," I stammered. "Does he tell you your friends are not good for you? Does he try to keep you away from your family?" I thought of Sarah. I thought of how I hadn't seen my parents in months because David was always too busy for a visit. "Does he tell you that you are the only good, pure person in the world?" Anna continued. "That everyone else is a disappointment." My heart was pounding. It was like she was reading from a script of my life for the past 2 years. "He didn't leave me with a broken heart, Victoria," Anna said, her voice trembling now. "He left me with nothing. He took all my savings. He ran up thousands of dollars of debt in my name on credit cards I didn't know I had. He told all our friends that I was crazy, that I was a liar, so no one would believe me. He isolated me. He broke me down, piece by piece. And when there was nothing left to take, he left. And he played the victim. He is very, very good at playing the victim." I couldn't speak. My mind was screaming, "No, no, no. This couldn't be true. My David. My kind, loving David. He wouldn't do that. He couldn't." "I know you don't believe me," Anna said. "I wouldn't either. I loved him too once. I thought he was my dream come true, just like you." Her voice was filled with a deep, weary sadness. "I'm not calling to hurt you. I'm calling because I cannot let him do this to another woman. I can't let him destroy you, too." "Why should I believe you?" I whispered. My perfect world was tilting. The walls were starting to crack. "You shouldn't," she said. "You should look for yourself. Look in his office, in the bottom drawer of his filing cabinet. There is a locked box. He keeps everything there. Old bank statements, credit card bills, the truth. He thinks he is too smart to get caught. He was with me. Please, Victoria, just look for your own sake. And then she was gone. The line was dead. I stood in my kitchen for a long time. The phone was still in my hand. My body was shaking. My mind was a whirlwind of confusion and fear. Anna's words echoed in my head. This was a lie. It had to be a lie. She was a bitter ex-wife, trying to ruin our happiness. David had warned me about her. He said she might try to contact me. Don't believe anything she says, my love, he had told me. She is a very sick woman. I wanted to believe him. I needed to believe him. But Anna's voice, it sounded so sane, so real. That night when David came home, I tried to act normal. I smiled. I asked about his day. He hugged me. He told me he loved me. But his words felt different. His touch felt different. Was it all an act? Was this kind, loving man a stranger? A monster wearing a mask? I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed next to him, pretending to be asleep. My heart was pounding in my chest. I waited until I heard his breathing become deep and regular. Then I quietly slipped out of bed. I crept downstairs to his home office. The room was dark. The moonlight shone through the window, making long shadows on the floor. I felt like a criminal in my own home. I went to his filing cabinet. My hands were trembling so much, I could barely open the drawer. The bottom drawer. It was full of files. And in the back, behind a stack of old papers, I saw it. A small, black metal box. It was locked. My heart sank. A locked box, just like she said. Where was the key? I looked around the room frantically. On his desk, in the drawers, nothing. Then I remembered. He had a small, decorative bowl on his bookshelf. It was filled with old coins and keys. He said they were from his grandfather. I went to the bowl. I emptied it onto the desk. There were about 10 small, old-fashioned keys. One by one, with shaking hands, I tried them in the lock. The first one didn't work. The second, the third. My hope was rising. Maybe she was wrong. Maybe the box was just an old thing. Then the fourth key. It slid in. It turned click. The sound was the loudest sound I had ever heard. It was the sound of my world breaking. I opened the box. It was full of papers. I took them out. There were credit card statements, dozens of them. They were addressed to Anna Sterling. At their old address, the statements showed thousands and thousands of dollars of charges for expensive clothes, for trips I know she never took, for electronics. Then I saw the bank statements from her savings account. They showed a large amount of money at the beginning. Then there were withdrawals, large withdrawals, week after week, until the balance was 0. And then, at the very bottom of the box, I found the letters. Legal letters from lawyers, addressed to Anna, about the debt, about collections, about foreclosure on their house. It was all true. Every single word she said was true. He had done it. He had ruined her. And he had lied to me about all of it. He wasn't the victim. He was the villain. And I had fallen in love with a monster. I sat on the floor of his office, surrounded by the proof of his lies. The tears I had been holding back finally came. But they were not just tears of sadness. They were tears of rage, of betrayal, of utter, complete foolishness. How could I have been so blind? I thought about all the small things: his control of the money, his criticism of my friends, his story that made him the perfect, wounded hero. It was all part of his plan. A plan he had used before. A plan he was using on me. I stayed there until the sun started to rise. I put all the papers back in the box. I locked it. I put the key back. I went back upstairs. David was still sleeping peacefully. He looked so innocent. I felt sick looking at him. I packed a bag. I took my passport, my personal bank cards, my laptop. I wrote a note. A very short note. I left it on his pillow. I know everything, it said. Then I walked out of my beautiful, perfect house, and I didn't look back. I went to Sarah's house, my friend, the friend he tried to take away from me. I woke her up. She took one look at my face and pulled me into a hug. I told her everything. The phone call, the box, the truth. She didn't say, "I told you so." She just said, "I'm here. We will get through this." The last few months have been the hardest of my life. I filed for divorce. David tried to fight it. He tried to tell everyone I was the crazy one. He tried to turn my friends against me. But this time, it didn't work. I had Sarah. And I had the truth. Anna even agreed to help me. We were two strangers, connected by the same man's lies. We became a team. We made sure he couldn't hide this time. The process is over now. I am officially divorced. I have my own small apartment now. It is simple, but it is mine. It is honest. I am not the same Victoria. The naive, trusting girl is gone. She was a casualty of David's war. But in her place, a new woman is growing. A woman who is more careful. A woman who is wiser. A woman who is stronger. I learned a terrible lesson. I learned that some people wear masks. And their masks are so good, you can't see the monster underneath until it is too late. I learned that love should not be about control. It should not be about isolation. Real love makes you bigger. It doesn't make you smaller. I am healing. It is a slow process, but I will get there. I have good friends. I have my books. I have myself. And for the first time in a long time, I know that is enough. If you are listening to this, and something in your relationship feels wrong, please listen to that feeling. Trust your gut. It's okay to ask questions. It's okay to protect yourself. You are not being crazy. You are being smart. Don't let anyone make you feel small. Don't let anyone take your power. You deserve to be safe. You deserve to be happy. You deserve the truth. Keep going. You can do this.